Hello, my name is AJ. So I first accessed mental health services, I think, when I was 11, and when I was still at school, I was struggling with anxiety and panic attacks, and I then went into hospital when I was 14, like a slow deterioration that no one really provided any help for, and I was in hospital for 3.5 years, and then discharged to a specialist school for people with autism, and then been in adult hospitals a few times, but the entire thing has lasted 10 years. It's been exhausting. Finally feel like I'm settled. My last hospital admission was the most help I've ever had. They didn't do anything specific because there isn't really much treatment for my diagnosis, but they put me on 1-to-1, 2-to-1 for about 6 months and just gave me that space to get better, and it was good having someone immediately there to talk to. My diagnosis has changed over the years, which has been very confusing and upsetting at times. When I finally come to terms with having something and then it's taken away, it's kind of very confusing. But yeah, I now have more trauma than what I went in with to hospital the first time, and yeah. I've struggled with self-harm and suicide attempts. I've got complex PTSD. It's still difficult to manage day to day, but like I said, most stable I've ever been at the moment. Yeah, so where I live now is supported living, and there's staff here all the time, 24 hours a day. There's rooms for 4 residents here, but at the moment there's only 2 of us. I have been here on my own for a while because the other resident has been in and out of hospital, so it's been a bit lonely at times, but at the same time it's been good to have that care from the staff without any sort of interruptions. I'm still under a community mental health team, been referred for specialist therapy, and yeah, there's a long waiting list for that, but I know it's going to be coming, and so yeah, I'm still under sort of mental health services. I still got a lot of work to do, but I'm much better than I have been. There was a lot of negative experiences. I'd say the first hospital I was in, just a general acute ward at CAMS, obviously. In the moment, it felt very loving and supportive, but looking back on it, there were no boundaries whatsoever. You had staff hugging patients, stroking their hair with their head on their lap on the sofa. It is comforting in the moment, but I think that there was attachment issues, not just me, but other patients as well with staff, which then makes it even more difficult to move on. If you're being discharged especially, I then went to a PQ, and I've been on 2 low secures, which honestly, they were awful. I think all 3 of those wards have now shut down. There's been staff from one of them, the PQ, that have actually admitted that they enjoyed restraining kids and injecting kids. I've been injected in front of my grandparents. They never offered for them to leave the room. There was a lot of probably abuse from staff. I think that is the right word to call it. But when you're young and vulnerable, you can't really do much about it. They'd lie to my parents about how my day had been, lie to me. It was extremely difficult. Witnessed a lot of patients assaulting staff, but then actually at the same time it probably was a lot the other way around as well, just maybe in less obvious forms. I've been physically assaulted by staff members in my bedroom, which then meant there's no cameras, no evidence, so nothing gets done about it, because obviously all the staff believe the staff member what they're saying when they're saying it didn't happen. I've witnessed a lot of distressing and difficult things. Patients that I was friends with on the ward really struggling, and sometimes patients had to stop each other from self-harming because of the negligence from the staff. I know that there was a lot of sort of manipulation, and when you're a child, you'll just believe anything an adult says. So they probably got away with a lot of stuff because the patients wouldn't go off and tell the families, and even if they did, the staff would be sort of listened to, more prioritised than families and patients. They used to say it was, that person-centred care or whatever, but I don't know what that means because it didn't feel like that at all. Yeah, not a good experience, especially in CAMS hospitals. I was put on a learning dis ward. I've got autism, but I'm high functioning, and the other patients on the ward, totally different, they had totally different diagnoses, totally different struggles, just wasn't sort of appropriate for me. I was put on an all-female ward because I am transgender, but despite having come out as transgender, at least a year before this and had started socially transitioning, was still put on an all-female ward, which I understand that might have, in terms of the support, that might have been best, but I was then on a ward with 20 female patients, which was very difficult. It's impossible to sit here and list out all the negative things. I'm glad that I managed to get discharged after 3.5 years, but it's a shame that it was like that. There's just so much. Like I have written a book actually. It's not published or anything, but about 3 years ago I finished it, and it was just about from the beginning when I started struggling all the way through. I think I wrote it when I was at the specialist school. I haven't updated it since. There has been a lot that's happened. I probably will get around to doing it one day, but yeah, I've written a book because I thought that in the future I could look back on it. It might even be helpful for professionals, maybe other people who have been through the same thing. So I'm trying to use the negative experiences to maybe do something good, and I guess that's what I'm doing by volunteering for this mental health ambassador thing.